actually conservatives are portraying Joe Biden in these deep fakes and cheap fakes to make it look like he's not capable of running the country. Oh, by the way, Joe Biden dropped out. Welcome to Come and Take It. Those of you who are new to us, please make sure that you subscribe to both our YouTube channel and our audio podcast, which you can find on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating or a review, and that will help us in the algorithm. So let's talk cackling Kamala Harris. She's the vice president, obviously. She is the presumed Democrat nominee for president now that Obama and top Democrats apparently, allegedly, I'll say, worked with her to threaten old Joe with the 25th Amendment. If you guys haven't heard, that's actually the latest. That came out at the end of last week. A reporter by the name of Seymour Hersh, this is an independent investigative reporter, and he says that his sources tell him that Obama worked with Kamala, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and a few others, Hakeem Jeffries, to basically threaten Joe, if you don't drop out of the race, we are just going to invoke the 25th Amendment, and it's going to get way more embarrassing for you. So you might as well just drop out now while you're ahead, which is very cunning, honestly. But so obviously Kamala is now the Democrat, the presumed Democrat candidate for 2024. Now, because that is the case, a lot of her failed track record is bubbling up to the surface, and rightfully so, by the way. So I would also like to add to that list of roles and responsibilities: vice president, presumed Democrat nominee, also the failed border czar, who actually was just condemned by the United States House of Representatives for sucking at her job. I know the media is trying to tell you now, in 2024, they're trying to tell you she was actually never the border czar. That's not true. That's a mean Republican lie. What are you talking about? She was never the border czar. Okay, we'll get into that. All right. But for now, 6 Democrats voted with Republicans last week to pass a resolution condemning Kamala Harris's complete neglect of the wide open border.
I love democracy.
Now, this is what the resolution says. So according to the resolution, over 9.7 million illegal aliens have been encountered by Border Patrol since then, including 31,077 communist Chinese nationals. Well, that's kind of scary. Is it not? I mean, remember, I'm not great at geography, okay? I just like to preface this. I'm not great at geography. Pretty sure that people who are coming in the southern border from China are not walking the whole way. They're not even driving the whole way. Like, there's a plane ride or a boat or a very long swim that has to take place in order for these Chinese nationals to show up at the southern border. And you'd think that if they had good intentions and they were good people, they could just come straight here. They could just get a plane ride straight here. They could just walk in and show their passport like everyone else. So you really should raise alarm bells for you that many communist Chinese nationals have made their way into this country by way of the southern border. And by the way, that 9.7 million that they reference, that's a low estimate, in my opinion. Because remember, we have no way of knowing how much higher the number is because we don't know how many gotaways there are. They have a rough estimate. They can tell you, we think that there are this many gotaways, but that's the whole point of that's why they're called gotaways, right? We don't know who they are because they are coming in through the border without being apprehended. So there's no way to even know how many there are. There's certainly no way to know who they are. That's by very definition why they're called gotaways. Okay, so that number, I just on its surface, I don't believe it's 9.7. I don't even believe it's 10 million. I believe it's upwards of 12 million. But unfortunately, we may never know. And if we do learn it, it will be the hard way.
Macklin is on the case. Burt Macklin, FBI.
We're way past the easy way of learning how many people We've already entered only learning the hard way territory if we learn it all. So as much as, the media wants to memory hole it, they're really good at doing that, by the way. They want to pretend like things didn't happen. They want to come out with their fact check articles. Actually, conservatives are portraying Joe Biden in these deep fakes and cheap fakes to make it look like he's not capable of running the country. Oh, by the way, Joe Biden dropped out. Turns out he wasn't capable of running the country. I mean, they're gaslighting us over and over again, claiming that we're making things up, claiming that we're deceptively editing things, claiming that we are, just pretending like Kamala was the border czar. What are you talking about? Kamala was never named border czar. That wasn't a thing. You crazy right-wing Republican nut jobs. You just make stuff up. You conspiracy theorist, you. Now, for a very long time, they have been able to get away with just pretending, gaslighting you, pretending that things were not as we all know that they were, okay? But the beautiful thing about the internet is that it's forever. You can try to claim that that wasn't so, but we do have a press conference back in, I believe this was 2021, of Joe Biden explicitly assigning Kamala to the border to solve the border issue. Here's that.
I've asked her, the VP today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border.
And now you might say, okay, well, maybe the media just, they got it wrong. They didn't realize that Kamala was actually called the border czar. Kamala was in charge of the border. Maybe they missed that press conference, which I think is giving them a whole lot of grace that they don't deserve. But let's try to pretend that for a second. Well, Media Research Center put together a little compilation of how the media talked about Kamala handling the border before Joe Biden dropped out, and then after Joe Biden dropped out. And you'll notice these very same people are using the term happily before they had to change gears and try to carry water and cover up for Kamala's disastrous handling of the border. Watch.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. She was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
I watched that and I'm just like, however much you hate the media, however much you hate the mainstream media, it's not enough. These are bad people. These are dishonest, despicable people. They don't care that Kamala and Joe's policies have made us less safe. They don't care that there are Americans that we can actually point to that have lost their loved ones, Texans that we can actually point to who are now 6 feet under the ground and their loved ones grieve them directly because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, border czar, of their handling of the border. They also don't care, the media. They don't care that we cannot take care of these people. Like, we don't have the resources. This is completely unsustainable. And by the way, we can't even take care of our own people. So we certainly don't have any business trying to house and take care of people who shouldn't even be here. Ask El Paso how that's working out for them. Ask McAllen how that's working out for them.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Clearly, we don't have the resources. This is making us not only less safe, but also a worse place to live and be. And the mainstream media, these little elitists in the mainstream media who go to the same parties with Joe and Kamala, the border czar, they just don't care. They don't care how negatively all of this impacts you. They definitely don't care, by the way, that there are terrorists who, there's no way there are not terrorists who are here as a direct result of Joe Biden and border czar Kamala Harris's open borders policy that we likely will not find out the details of just how dangerous it is that they're here before it's too late. We won't find out until it's too late. And we will have to deal with the consequences of that. That's guys, that's just a numbers game. I'd love to pretend like this is some like big prediction that I'm making. And then once it happens, I'll be like, oh my gosh, it turns out I was correct. It really does not take a rocket scientist to predict that just numbers wise, sheer numbers wise, when you look at the people who are coming into this country, when you look at all of the countries that they are from, all of the regions that they're from, it does not take a rocket scientist.
Rocket scientist, how humiliating.
To understand it is just a numbers game, and there's no way that we have not already let people in who mean and desire to cause us harm. And so, I'm going to say border czar Kamala Harris as many times as I can in this episode because she is, and we're not going to let them forget that, okay? So border czar Kamala Harris has constantly shifted blame on the border, even though she very clearly, you heard it earlier, she very clearly was put in charge. Now, she went to Guatemala back in 2021, shortly after being appointed border czar. And I want to show you some of her just brilliant strategy in handling this mass influx, this crisis of people pouring through our southern border.
At the same time, I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
Do not come.
Oh, do not come. Now, I wasn't convinced of the sincerity, but then she repeated it. And she said, do not come again. Wow. Then I realized, if I were an illegal immigrant just waiting to come through our border, I'd be like, oh, well, she did say it twice. She repeated do not come twice. Now, they're going to let me in when I come anyway, and they're going to give me free stuff. But she did repeat do not come twice. Wow. Can't believe those illegals didn't take her seriously. But that's what you get from border czar Kamala Harris. Now, how many times did she visit the border? None. Oh, but the mainstream media will tell you she did visit the border once. No, I don't give her credit for that. She went to El Paso, she toured a Border Patrol facility, and she gave a press conference at the airport. I didn't see her on the border. I didn't see her down there where it's so dangerous. I didn't see her down there once. And trust me, if there had been a chance that she had been there, she would have taken the photo op. She went to El Paso. She went to a Border Patrol facility. That's it. And that was one time. So no, I don't buy that she visited the border as border czar. And I want to play what she had to say on that one occasion that border czar Kamala decided to almost make it to the actual border.
Whether it was when I met with children who are unaccompanied minors, or I met with leaders who have been on the ground in El Paso for many, many years, doing work that is directly about supporting and interacting with folks who are immigrating to the United States and who are crossing this border. The president and I are absolutely committed to ensuring that our immigration system is orderly and humane, and I do believe that we are making progress in that regard. It is here in El Paso that the return to Mexico policy from the previous administration was implemented. We have seen the disaster that resulted from that. And working on a comprehensive approach that is our administration's resolve toward the overall issue, which is root causes, and then deal with what's happening at the border. And boots on the ground here at the border, implementing reforms within the Department of Homeland Security that are clearly having an effect of expediting in a fair and judicious way the folks who are arriving.
Oh my gosh, you guys. If only we could figure out the root cause of all of this migration. Like Kamala just needs all of this time to figure out the root cause. It's really hard. It's really difficult.
I just can't figure it out.
We can't figure out why these people keep coming here. I mean, gosh, take more time to figure it out, border czar Kamala. The root cause of this mass migration is that we're the freaking United States of America, the best country in the entire world for now. If Joe and Kamala have their way, we won't be for long, but we are for now. We have greater resources and a greater infrastructure than many other countries, specifically all of these underdeveloped countries that have all of these people keep coming here. And we are knowing this, okay? Knowing that we are who we are, the United States of America. We have all of these, resources for ourselves. We have the infrastructure that all of these other countries don't have. They're obviously, these underdeveloped third world countries, even if they're not third world, they still have an economy, a system that is unlike ours. And so we, knowing that we already by name attract a lot of people who want to come here, we're leaving the front freaking door wide open. Like, that's the root cause, Kamala. This isn't a question. I would love to see an amount of money that our United States government, the federal government, has spent on trying to figure out what the root cause of this mass migration is. Like, the root cause is y'all told all these people to come here. You're attracting them on purpose. Your administration got rid of Remain in Mexico immediately and bragged about it, by the way. And now my state here in Texas is being flooded with them. And you want to claim you don't know what the root cause is? Girl, give me a break. I mean, I don't think Kamala is smart, but you have to have an incredibly low IQ to not understand and add up all of these pieces together and know exactly what the root cause is. It's you. It's you. The problem is you, Kamala. But remember, it's fine because as I've heard her say over and over and over again, Kamala can imagine what can be unburdened by what has been.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know? What can be unburdened by what has been. 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 What we can see, what we believe can be unburdened by what has been. What 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 can be unburdened by what has been. Who we can be unburdened by who we have been. What can be unburdened by what has been. Where we can be unburdened by where we've been and unburdened by where we are right now. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What could be unburdened by what has been. What can 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 be unburdened by what has been. Unburdened by what has been. What can be 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 unburdened by what has been.
Now, don't get me wrong, okay? This was a resolution that these House Republicans and 6 Democrats, by the way, I don't want to lose sight of that. 6 Democrats sided with Republicans to condemn one of their own. That's a big deal. Is a resolution going to do anything? No, it's like a sternly worded letter to the manager. I get it. It's not going to like change the trajectory of anything. But this woman, this is the more important point. This woman is running for president, and forcing her and the rest of the country and the leftist mainstream media to stare, to focus in on the unmitigated disaster at the border that she has only made worse since she got put in charge of it is not the worst thing in the world. I mean, you've got all sorts of, you've got fact checks of fact checks. You've got X putting community notes on, outlets like Axios that came out and put out recent articles saying, no, Kamala was never made the border czar. That's a lie. And they had to get community noted. That's like, actually, Axios themselves referenced her as border czar previously in 2021 on this date and this date and this date. I mean, these mainstream medias are like, they look painfully stupid and evil. Why not both? For trying to cover Kamala's awful track record. And being here in Texas, being a border state, I take that very personally. So the point is, as much as we can not let them memory hole this disaster that Kamala has been in charge of, the more we need to be doing that. And, I gotta say, it couldn't happen to a more deserving person, Kamala Harris. So do not let them memory hole this. Obviously, Kamala was... look at her track record on the border. Do you want her actually in charge of everything now? You want her just going and meeting with world leaders? You want her meeting with, Zelensky and Putin and all of these Middle Eastern leaders and just laughing hysterically? Talking about school buses and Venn diagrams and all that? Yeah, no. I don't think that's what we want, America. I don't think that's what we want at all. All right, you guys have a great week. We will see you next time on Come and Take It.